body, my choice. My body, my choice. I'm sure you've heard these words chanted by leftist protesters. My body, my choice. That's what they always say. Of course, that when it comes to abortion, of course, that unborn child doesn't have the choice to live. The child that they murder in the womb never had the right to life. But my body, my choice is what they say. Oh, except when it comes to vaccines. So it's your body, your choice until the child is born. So you can kill the child before it's born if you want. That's your body, your choice. But then when the child is born, it becomes the government's body, the government's choice, and they force you to vaccinate your kids. Now, I don't know why they care so much if you don't want to get vaccinated. After all, you're vaccinated, you should be fine. I'm the one at risk. Oh, because it's not about the vaccines. It's about control. It's about authoritarianism. And Del Bigtree has been one of the lead fighters when it comes to vaccine choice. Of course, you've probably seen or heard of his documentary, Vaxxed. So Del Bigtree joins me now from ICanDecide.com. My body, my choice, Del. That is until the baby's born. Then the government decides that it's their choice to vaccinate your child.
That's absolutely right. Oh, and thanks for having me on to talk about this. This is a really important issue. I mean, we're talking about, all of the fundamental rights we think we have to protect our land rights, our right to bear arms, but we're giving up our right to control what's injected into our bodies and the bodies of our children. And that's the main focus of what I'm involved in fighting for. I'm trying to wake people up to the fact that you're being force injected. More and more states are passing laws to force inject not only your children, but also they're working on adult mandates where they're going to line up every adult in America and inject them with vaccines. So if that's not a good idea or you're not into it, you need to stand up and start representing your thoughts at every state capital in this country, because pharma, which is now the most powerful lobby in Washington, they're outspending oil and gas 2 to 1. They're buying all of your next politicians as we speak. This next election is going to be under major scrutiny and control by the pharmaceutical industry. This great industry that's brought us the OxyContin epidemic, that is over and over again, every time you see that lawyer on your television screen saying, if you've been injured by this drug, they've paid out billions and billions of dollars for lying to the public. If you look at Vioxx, if people remember Vioxx, that killed over 60,000 people with heart attacks. And in their own studies, they knew it caused heart attacks. They hid that from the FDA. That's Merck that got busted with that. Merck makes most of our childhood vaccines. So I'm trying to get people to understand that vaccines are not made by some group of angels at these pharmaceutical, agencies that we detest. It's the same people, the same money-grubbing, controlling, power, group that are trying to buy politicians that are making your vaccines. Only difference between drugs and vaccines is they can't force drugs on you yet. They can force vaccines on you, and we need to stop that.
Well, and, when you talk about vaccinating or forced vaccination of adults, you look at a situation, let's say there's some big outbreak, right? Some big viral outbreak or something, and they say, oh, we have the vaccine. This is kind of what they tried to do with the, I think it was the swine flu. This is the mosquitoes were carrying, or Zika. It was Zika they were doing it with Ebola right, and all of this stuff. And so, yeah, the general population, if they were, scared, they would go get the vaccine if they thought that that would stop them from getting this disease that's outbreaking. But there's another layer to this, and I kind of like to tie this in, at least this aspect, with the food industry, where if you take the average individual, right, and you say, hey, do you eat this or that food product? And they'll say, yeah, I eat that, or drink that. And you say, okay, let me just read off the ingredients to this, right? Here's X, Y, and Z ingredients. Multiple have been, linked to X, Y, and Z, whether they're carcinogenic, diabetes, this, that, or the other thing. Okay, now that you know the truth about these ingredients, do you still want to eat this food? Most of the time, they're going to kind of take a step back and say, wow, maybe I do need to reconsider my diet. Maybe I need to read the ingredients on this food before I eat it. But it's the same thing with vaccines. Oh, it's just a vaccine, just another needle. I'm the doctor, right? Trust me, I'm just going to stick you. It's a vaccine. Everybody gets it. Well, why don't you actually read the insert? Why don't you read the ingredients of that vaccine, make an informed decision, and then see what ingredients are in there, see what side effects they have, and then you can make the informed decision. Do you want those ingredients to be put into your child at a very young age where their blood-brain barrier hasn't been fully developed. It's a very dangerous thing, and you make an informed decision. And I think just like with food, most people are going to see that ingredient list and say, you know what? I don't think I want that.
You may be right. I mean, look, we do know that aluminum is proving to be a very, very toxic element in all of our vaccines, being given at huge doses. I was just at the aluminum adjuvant convention in Portugal, where all the top scientists are investigating specifically the amount of aluminum we're injecting. So I got to interview Chris Exley, who did the biggest brain study of autistic children ever. And he found the highest levels of aluminum ever recorded in the human brain in all 5 of the brains, including a 15-year-old child. Now, to put that in perspective, he also is the one that did the study of 100 brains of children, of people who had Alzheimer's. All of those people were 50 to 80 years old, all 100 of those brains. And up until that study, that was the highest levels of aluminum ever seen. So now in the autism study, he's seeing a 15-year-old with more aluminum than the 50 and 80-year-old Alzheimer's patients. And what's really terrifying about it, when I interviewed him, he said that when it came to Alzheimer's, we were seeing aluminum around the outside of the cells. Somehow aluminum had sort of crossed that blood-brain barrier and gotten into the brain. It was surrounding the cells of the brain. He said, and I quote, I asked him, so you're saying aluminum can cause Alzheimer's? He says, no. I said, no aluminum, no Alzheimer's. That's how clear he is on the study that he did. But what he pointed out with autism is it's different. He said the aluminum we're finding in the autistic brains of these children is inside the cells. To be specific, inside the glia, which is the immune cells in your brain. So now we know that the immune activation that's happening in the shoulder, when we inject a vaccine in the shoulder, our immune cells are grabbing that and then making it into our brain and destroying the brains of children. This is being backed up, Owen, in so many different studies around the world. There's a great scientist in China named Yao who studied at the University of Pittsburgh. He's doing huge rat and mice studies looking at the hepatitis B vaccine that we give to day 1 old babies. And in every mouse model and study, he is showing neurological development disorders after vaccinating the same way we vaccinate our babies. There's no question about this. We are affecting the brains of our children with the amount of vaccines and the timing of these vaccines. And any doctor that says that it's been proven safe, they are either lying or they are in the dark, just like most of us are. And that's where, you know, as a journalist, I worked on the daytime talk show, The Doctors, for 6 years. I celebrated medicine. That's what I've been doing. Then I got into this vaccine story and I left that all behind. I've been doing nothing but investigating the safety of vaccines for 3 years. And we have a serious crisis. You know, Donald Trump set us up with a meeting. I went with Bobby Kennedy and me, and a couple of other people. We got to meet with the heads of the National Institute of Health, CDC, FDA, and air our grievances of how vaccines are being dealt with. And one of the big problems is there is no safety studies being done on childhood vaccines. I want people to hear that. No safety studies. And what I mean is the gold standards of a safety study are the double-blind inert placebo study, where one group gets the vaccine and the other group gets an inert saline injection. This is how every drug we test goes through, and you study them for 5 to 10 years and see and make sure that the placebo group and the drug group are having the same health outcomes, same amount of cancer and everything else. Our vaccines they're not going through that. And we said that to their faces. Are you doing the double-blind experiment? And what they said to us is, no, we are not, because it would be unethical. Get this, unethical to use the scientific method to prove safety in vaccines, meaning they have a religious belief that vaccines are safe before they even get a brand new one. Consider Gardasil, HPV vaccines, one of our newest vaccines. They never tested it for safety because they didn't want to have a placebo group that didn't get it.
You know, and if you, let's say that you're just a parent, okay, and you're at home and you wanted to quote unquote self-medicate your child, if you gave them the same ingredients in these vaccines, that would be considered child abuse, okay? You would be arrested and lose your kids for child abuse. Oh, but because the loving government does it with Big Pharma and Merck and the doctor, oh, it's loving.
Live.com.